if you're logging in. So, hi everyone, this is Marcus. I work developer relations for Edge and Node with my buddy Crypto Mastery, aka Kevin Jones, who is also Edge and Node developer relations. We are DevRel combo, one with a lot of luxurious hair, one without any. So that is how we balance out the forces in the Jedi mind force that we have. How you doing today, Kevin? Great to have you on Graph Builders office hours with me. What's going on, man?
Doing great, man. It's great to be here. I always love coming on here. I feel a little reminiscent. Like it's been a while since I tuned in. So thanks so much for having me on today. I'm excited to show off some cool stuff.
Yeah, man. And for everyone tuning in, Discord, how's it going? GM, I'm seeing. Hi, everyone filtering in. We'll wait probably 3 to 5 minutes for people to come in and we'll go over today's talk together. But before we do that, Kevin, can you go ahead and share? You used to host this, right? Is that the case?
Yeah. That was it seems like forever ago, right? Like a year and a half ago since we started this. And yeah, I did it for a while, and then you took over the reins and have been doing an amazing job. Yeah, just amazing how much you've grown the community. So good job, man.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, it was a good time back then. I came on a few episodes. I think, yeah, it was started a year and a half ago. And with the amount that you travel, I remember, like, if anyone doesn't know how much Kevin travels, he's an amazing traveler, probably the best I've ever met. I sincerely mean that. The best traveler I've ever met in terms of just consistent, no matter where he is in the world, consistent. Just, yeah, it's tough. I would imagine different time zones, all of that with hosting.
You get used to it, after a while you're just like, it's like, where am I? I don't know. You just wake up, it's sunny or it's not. I don't know. You just figure it out.
Yeah, you're really good at figuring it out. So kudos to you. And we'll let a few more people filter in here. How's it going, chat? Seeing a lot of people in here today. GM, how's it going? Some familiar faces. How is everyone doing? For those of you live streaming on X, if you have any questions, hop into the Graphs Discord. And we are a active community in the Graphs Discord. We have a lot of nice, kind, helpful, smart people waiting for you guys to get onboarded into the ecosystem. And you can ask questions to us live in real time. And we do this every week. So those of you streaming, we stream every week, every Thursday, 5 p.m. UTC. And in this call, we bring in builders from within the graph who are building the graph actively, such as from the core dev teams. And also we bring in people who are outside of the graph ecosystem who are building on the graph. Let's say there's dApps, let's say there's chains that are integrating with us, just people that are interfacing with the technology that we are involved in. So with that being said, Kevin, you want to go ahead and do a little introduction for yourself, and then I can hop off stage and let you take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcus. Yeah, so anyone who does not know me, yeah, my name is Kevin Jones. Been with the Graph ecosystem for a little over 2 years. I actually started out as a Graph advocate, like back when that Graph Advocates program was going strong.
Same here.
And yeah, Graph Advocates. And so now I'm working in DevRel for Edge and Node, working on the Graph, and I'm also supporting the Build Guild, working on what's called Scaffold Eats, which I'll talk about today. And yeah, just a strong member of the community and love everybody so much and excited to build with you guys. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, great to have you on, Kevin, and looking forward to this presentation. Once again, I'll step off. I will let you take it away from here. If you have anything that you need, just shout it out. I'll be listening in. And anyone in chat, drop your questions as this is going on. Kevin's an OG, very well experienced in this industry, and really happy to have him on today. So take it away, Kevin.
Thank you, Marcus. Cool. So I guess I can just share my screen. I think, the goal for today is to talk to you guys about something that I've been working on for a while, and just to kind of walk you guys through the mental model that I went through and creating this, actually walk through the actual code, show how it works, talk about why I built it, and how I built it, right? And for anyone who doesn't know, I've been working in the Ethereum ecosystem for a little over 4 years, and I've been primarily supporting Ethereum developers. And so I did build this tool on Ethereum, and it is meant to kind of support and help onboard developers into the Graph ecosystem. Let's get started. So first of all, how did I come up with this idea? Well, as you guys, some of you know, I'm involved in the Build Guild. when I first kind of like started looking at how to build on Ethereum and like learning and understanding the technology and like what smart contracts were and stuff like that, I made this journey. And the first tool that I came across that really just kind of like everything clicked into place was Scaffold ETH, right? Scaffold ETH was this toolkit that basically came with a lot of kind of like decisions made for you, but they were like the right decisions. You know, they were the right tools that you needed to get the job done like quickly and easily. And so I instantly was just kind of like obsessed a little bit with Scaffold ETH. It was just something that I just constantly wanted to learn everything about and like use it as a tool along my journey. And then on top of that, like another big reason that I was very much like hooked on Ethereum and like hooked on building on Ethereum was speedrun Ethereum. And so anyone who doesn't know, like speedrun Ethereum was this or is this like dApp that you basically can interface with, and you can basically do these like missions, right? You can challenges is what they're called, and they're like different things that basically test your ability, right? Like the first one is like you deployed like a simple NFT, right? It's kind of like a no code challenge, but you have to like go through the process of like actually deploying a NFT on Ethereum. Then the next one's like a staking app. It gets a little more complicated. You learn about like tokenomics and like why you need to be able to stake a token on the network and like how you use a smart contract as a bank and to, you know, hold assets. And then you learn about swapping, right? Like token vendors and how you can actually like swap one asset for another. And so you kind of go on this journey with this tool. And it really tests you. Like then you learn about randomness, and then eventually like you build a DEX, which is like probably a huge step, but it's probably the most complicated part of that journey. But at the end, you like really learn a lot, and not only that, you're very much like in tune with like the tooling and like the experience, right? And then eventually, you know, like you can join the Build Guild and you can be a part of that community. So it's a great tool for like onboarding developers. And the Graph and Build Guild have a very like tight connection. I think it started out like Adam Fuller, who was a product manager for Edge and Node, working on the Graph, was very closely, working with like Austin on like some tooling, and specifically the first iteration of what we call now the subgraph package was like a special repository, which was a branch basically of Scaffold ETH that had a direct integration with the Graph, which is really cool because then you could use that tooling, and then you could also like build a subgraph into that, right? And so that was actually my first journey into the Graph, was through Scaffold ETH, right? It was first I learned about Scaffold ETH and all the tooling there, and then I actually watched a video with Adam showing off what then was like, I think it was just called like subgraph or something like that, to be able to like integrate and like build a subgraph. And then I realized,
real quick, Kevin,
yeah,
if is it possible, I'm getting a chat that's saying if the screen could be a little bit bigger. I'm not sure if that's possible for you because you've got that full screen already.
oh, it's full screen, yeah.
Yeah,
Because maybe it was these previous ones, they're hard to read.
maybe that might have been it.
Yeah, so anyone who wants to read those, they can go to like speedrunethereum.com and you can look through those individually.
Cool, that's all.
Yeah, I'll try to zoom in when I can. Thank you so much. So yeah, so the Build Guild and the Graph have a good like, you know, we're like tightly stitched together because of the tooling and because of like, you know, the use case. Like using the Graph in this toolkit really makes a lot of sense because that middleware that the Graph like solves for data is like really important to a developer's journey and like building on Ethereum, right? And so anyone who wants to, that just so you know, you can spin up the subgraph extension of Scaffold ETH just by using that one command on the bottom. You can run npx create-eth at latest-e subgraph, and that will spin up Scaffold ETH with a subgraph. And that's what I used to build this project. Another thing is I was actually in Japan. I was at ETH Tokyo, ETH Global Tokyo. I think it was like a while ago. It was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. And we also had this other idea. This is actually before I worked for Edge and Node and before I worked for the Graph. I had a conversation with Simone, who, anyone who doesn't know Simone, he was the manager for DevRel and just an amazing human being. And we were talking about like all this strength that the Build Guild has in like community and like, you know, the concept, if anybody doesn't know the Build Guild, you can kind of have like a stream and you can get some ETH to do some work for the Build Guild. And I wanted to do that for the Graph. And so we actually launched the Graph cohort, which was a special cohort that enabled like developers to have a GRT stream. So they could actually do some work and build stuff in the tooling that supports the graph in Scaffold ETH related tooling and get compensation from that with a GRT stream. So that's really cool. And that's still going, right? We still have like 5 or 6 developers in that stream. And now they just basically support the subgraph package. And they do like different things like write blog posts or like help support in the support channels. So anyways, we're trying to create this cool community with the graph and build guild, and I think we've done a good job of that. And so I think this is the next evolution of where I've gotten to now, is like, are you ready for like what I'm going to teach you and what I'm going to show you? And this is inspired by Speedrun Ethereum. It's a tool that will help onboard developers and bring them into the graph ecosystem and teach them about writing subgraphs and test their ability in a really cool way using the technology around the build guild. So let's take a look at the video. By the way, huge shout out to Marco for this video. He sent me this morning and I was like, I have to use this in my presentation. So I hope the audio comes through, but check it out. Awesome. Okay, the URL is wrong, by the way. So that URL won't work, but that was obviously something that was sent to me this morning. I wanted to show that off. Let me stop that and let me go to the next slide here. Okay, so the Graph Builders Basecamp. So first of all, like, why did I create it? Well, again, it was inspired by Speedrun Ethereum, right? This like idea of like trying to capture a developer as they're going through a journey and like learning something, right? I think it's like super empowering. You can like give someone the tools to do a job. Like you can hand someone a hammer and a screwdriver and some nails, and you could be like, hey, build this. Or you can give them the blueprint, right? And you can explain that, hey, this nail goes here, this screw goes here. And that's what the Graph Builders Basecamp is. It's like a journey that someone can make to become not only like a basic subgraph developer, but to do some more advanced things, right? And like learn and understand the technology at a higher level. So it is a full, it's built on Scaffold ETH. It's actually built on the subgraph package. It introduces a new kind of like fun little character called Grixel. At least I think that's how we're pronouncing it. Grixel is this kind of like, maybe in the future, like AI assistant kind of agent that will like kind of like assist you in your like journey through the application. And you can essentially interact with that person. And like right now it's very like high level, like it's just guiding you like through the Telegram chats and stuff like that. But it's this little personality and this little character that adds a little flair to the game. And then it is ERC 1155 based NFTs that provide rewards for like as you go through these missions. So very similar to like Scaffold ETH's challenges that you have when you go to Speedrun Ethereum. We have these missions, and then each mission is kind of like themed, space themed, that you have to accomplish like certain things to get the mission completed by creating subgraphs and by writing Solidity code and going through these kind of things. And we'll take a look at it here in a little bit. So how did I build it? So high level architecture, again, is we're using Next.js. We're using fully TypeScript application. So it's basically React with Next.js, TypeScript. We're deploying on Base because of gas costs, and like I think just Base is kind of like a fun little network right now. It's very fast. It's got like really good active developer community, and so I've done kind of choice to deploy to Base. We might deploy it to other chains in the future. I think that makes sense to put it on other layer 2s. But it's really 2 smart contracts. It's the basecamp.sol, which is kind of like the main like Basecamp where you have like the ERC. There might be another contract that we add later, which is like profiles, which might be like ERC 720s. But for the most part right now, it's just kind of like open and anyone can go through the missions and get these 1155 tokens. And then on top of that, there's another contract, which is the validator.sol, that does all of the Chainlink related operations. And I chose to use Chainlink for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is with Speedrun Ethereum, which is completely amazing and fine, is it uses like a Firebase server. I think Firebase or Superbase, I cannot remember, but it uses kind of like a database, right? And so I wanted to figure out a way to where we could like kind of just let this thing live out in the open and make it to the point where someone could just spin it up on their computer and they don't really even need a web server. Like they literally could do everything on their local machine. And the answer to that is to use Chainlink functions, okay? So again, we're still using scaffolds. We're still using the subgraph components in our like application in the front. So we have a subgraph that consumes all of the mission stuff, like all of the contract events, and we're using that in our front end. But we're also using the as a validation endpoint inside of a Chainlink deal, inside the Chainlink Dawn is what they call it, so the decentralized Oracle network. So basically what that looks like is that a user can come in, they can connect their wallet, they can complete the first mission, and then they can write a transaction to the blockchain that has the subgraph URL in it. And we can basically ingest that data into the Chainlink Dawn here and basically validate that the GraphQL query using JavaScript code is executed inside of the decentralized Oracle network. So the Chainlink Dawn is kind of acting as like this validator layer that is completely decentralized. So technically speaking, this is a completely decentralized kind of task to earn / learn to earn application, right? And then this is very hard to read, so maybe I kind of zoom out and then kind of zoom in like this might be better. The general idea with Chainlink, how it works with functions, is you can send through a consumer contract. You can either do this with like an externally owned account, or you can use Chainlink automation to propose a transaction into the consumer contract. The consumer, it's a proxy style contract, so then it can then send a request to what's called the functions router, which basically says like, okay, well, you've kind of sent this request over. We need to figure out how it's going to be handled in the Oracle and start the request and keep track of it. So then there's this other, I think it's a contract that kind of coordinates and keeps track of the request, sends it to the Oracle network. If there were any secrets that you needed to expose, which we're not using secrets because we're just using the public development environment for the subgraph, we don't need those. But if, let's say we wanted to do like API key stuff in the future, we could. Like maybe some in the later missions, you'll need to provide an API key or a published subgraph, and we want to validate that. So we might hide our API key for the Basecamp into a secrets endpoint. And this is using like a distributed mechanism, it basically takes the key and it splits it up across all of the nodes in the Dawn, so that if one node gets compromised, like you would have to attack all of the nodes in the Dawn. But anyways, we're not using that now, but that might be a future thing. But the idea is that what happens is after the request comes out of the Oracle or into the Oracle network, all of the nodes basically make a request, and then they come into their own consensus, just like a kind of like a blockchain would. The Dawn, that's how it works, is it basically sends all these requests from all of the operators on the network, and then it transmits the responses back, right? And then it kind of starts flowing back into the response, and then till eventually there is a callback that's made to this consumer contract. So its function router then calls back to the consumer contract and then fulfills the request. So anything that is coming back in the logic of what you're passing through along the way comes back as a result of all of the processing that happens here in the Dawn. And so you can have any kind of cool logic inside of this consumer contract that will do something interesting based on the results of what was transmitted, right? So let's take a look at it. First of all, let's look at the Graph Builders Basecamp real quick. So the Graph Builders Basecamp is, again, it's just a typical Next.js application. So anyone who wants to check it out, you guys can do it. You can go to graphbuilders.vercel.app. It's currently only deployed to base Sepolia right now. So it's kind of in a test one. This is not the official one. So if you guys do it, just know that, this is just a test net, that things could break, stuff like that. But we're going to try to ship it by ETH Denver. Let's see if we can get it there. But yeah, so we have this idea where you can connect your wallet just like normal, right? And then you can basically hit begin and you can go through these missions. Now I'm already kind of logged in. Let me kind of sign out. So first we have this little kind of chat box that says, hey, how's it going? You look new here. Are you having any trouble? And then it gives you a link to a Telegram chat. Very similar to speedrun Ethereum is that we want to like grab people and like get them in a community. So we put them in this chat room and then they can go in there and like answer questions or ask questions, stuff like that. And then these missions are all here, right? So right now there's 4 missions. There's the orientation where you go through orientation. There's Alpha Centauri where you like list on a mission to go to Alpha Centauri. Then there's a 3rd mission where you have to establish communications with the moon base. And then there's a 3rd one, or 4th one, I should say, where you have to establish a lunar economy on the moon by establishing a moon token, which is an ERC-20. And all along these, you kind of go through and you do different tasks. There's 3 more that are locked, which are kind of like planned for like next year, or I should say later this year. And so those will be like added over time. But here, yeah, so you can say like part 1, like it kind of walks you through some like silly stuff, like gives you kind of some lore and stuff like that, some fun things. And then it goes you through, like there's basically split up into 3 sections. The first is like solidity. So you're going to kind of like have this like beginner solidity code, and then you might have to like write a little bit of solidity. So it'll give you some tasks. The very first mission, you don't really have to write any solidity. You just have to like take this contract and set up your environment using Scaffold ETH, right? So if anyone who's seen any of the Scaffold ETH videos I do, all the instructions are here, but we can clone this, we can go into the directory, we can check out the repository, we can install the dependencies, spin up our blockchain, deploy our contract, start our front end. So it's the same style as like any Scaffold ETH project. And then it walks you through like what to do next and where your subgraph is. And then it kind of navigates you to the next portion, right? And then this part, you'll actually like deploy your smart contract. So you need to generate a deployer private key. And then you need to fund your account and you need to send some ETH. Then you need to deploy to the network. So we're going to deploy to Base Sepolia. It tells you how to get some ETH from the faucet and stuff like that, and how to verify your contract. And it kind of walks you through if you were just a developer building a dApp on Ethereum. And then the very last one is you have to create a subgraph, right? So it walks you through how to go to the studio, how to connect your wallet, right? So it's kind of this like journey and you go through. And then at the very, very end, you get this ability to submit your mission. Now, so what happens is like I've kind of come up, I already did this mission and I have the URL here just to show you. So I can come to my subgraph that I did for this mission and I could hit playground and see that there's some data here. But if I go to endpoints and I grab the endpoint, I can come over here to the Graph Builders Basecamp. I can enter my URL and I can pre-check it now. This is like a new feature I added. It will check to make sure it's going to pass, and then I can submit a transaction to the Oracle network. When I do that, it will basically propose a transaction. It's all on chain. Send that over to the Chainlink Dawn. The Dawn will validate it at a consensus layer of all the nodes, and it will send that back, and then it will mint them an NFT, all in like one transaction. So really cool. And then, like I said, users can do this for like all of the missions, right? And they get a little more complex. So like I said, the first one is very simple. You're just kind of like, you're not even editing any solidity. You're not editing the subgraph at all. You're just kind of like deploying something to the studio. The second one gets a little harder. Like you have to actually write a little bit of solidity code, and you have to like add some events, right? And you have to understand how events work. And you go through, then there's kind of these like steps you go, and then eventually you deploy your application. So that's kind of like a walkthrough of the app. Then there's like a leaderboard, which keeps track. It's just a subgraph that keeps track of like everyone who's completed one. And then on top of that, sorry, my cat is meowing at the door right now. Then there's also this like debug contracts tab that won't be visible in the production, but this is just a cool part of Scaffold ETH. And we can kind of see what the contracts do here. Like, again, there's 2 contracts. There's the Basecamp, and then there's the validator contract. So the Basecamp is just an ERC token, right? And it's got like an admin role and a mentor role. We'll look at the code here in a second. And then there's the validator contract, which has like the Dawn, which is the decentralized Oracle network ID. It has the Basecamp address. It has the functions router. And then it also has like an ownership pattern. They both have an ownership pattern, so someone can own the contract. And they have all the functions here. So this is really useful for Scaffold ETH. If you've never seen it, you can like interact with the contract. Let's take a look at the actual source code. So I want to show Scaffold ETH's structure. I think everyone probably has seen this. Scaffold ETH normally has like 2 folders. It normally has a hard hat folder and a Next.js folder. When you're using the subgraph package, then you get the subgraph folder. Then this one also has like an IPFS folder because that's where we keep the NFT deployment. So we want to deploy those NFTs, right? So we use IPFS for that. And then we're using, I think, yeah, we're like using IPFS, and then we're like pinning all the NFT assets. And then Hard Hat has the contracts folder. So inside the contracts folder, there's 2 contracts, Basecamp and Sol. So Basecamp is very simple contract. It's got ownable, it's got ERC 1155, it's got access control. So basically someone can like be a minter or an admin, right? And then it's just got this struct that keeps track of the NFT information, like whether it's enabled, what the name of it is, and what the URLs for the image. And then we can like set up some stuff in the constructor. This is just a general ERC 1155 contract. It's nothing crazy. The validator is kind of what I want to show off. I think it's like the secret sauce of like how this all works. We inherit the Basecamp contract here. So we import the Basecamp contract, which is the token contract. And we establish that here by using this kind of like a variable. And then we set in the constructor, we set the address of the Basecamp here so that we can interact with it. So that kind of like links this kind of like validator contract to the NFT contract. And the reason why is because we need the callback. When the callback happens from the decentralized Oracle network, we need to be able to mint the user an NFT. So how does this work? Well, if a user comes into the contract and wants to validate their GraphQL URL, they call validate mission. So they call this validate mission thing. Let me try to make it a little bigger. Okay, yeah, validate mission. So what happens in this validate mission is someone passes the index of the mission. So what mission are they trying to submit for? They also pass the JavaScript source code, which is like basically how you're going to check. One thing I'll say here is we're going to change this so that it is actually checking the hash of the code, because we want to make sure no one is maliciously like changing the code so that it could pass. So right now, technically, this could be hacked, but we're going to set it so there will be a hash here that will check it. But for right now, we submit the source code in the transaction. We submit the subscription ID, which is for Chainlink, which we'll show off in a little bit. You need to fund the subscription to be able to like pay the network to run this kind of like consensus algorithm on your transaction. And then you set the gas limit. So like how much gas do you want to use in the transaction? And then you need to submit the query URL. So in this case, the query URL is the subgraph URL, like the query URL. And we do like a check to make sure that they don't already have the NFT. And then we formulate the request. So we say, okay, we'll initialize a request for inline JavaScript, passing the source code of the JavaScript, and create arguments arguments based off the values in 2 things. First, we grab the message sender. So the reason why that's important is because we need to say like, hey, if you're going to submit this request, we want to make sure that you're the one who built the subgraph. So we can do some checks where we can like make sure that the message sender of the person trying to submit the query URL matches the subgraph response. So that's really powerful. And then we can pass the query URL. So we set those in the arguments, and then those arguments are then used in the source code. So we'll look at it here in a second, but that's just kind of like high level how it works. And then here's where we set the arguments. And here's where we actually formulate the request. Here's where we actually send the request. And we get back a request ID, which is kind of like, in the process of sending, it's kind of like, hey, someone sent this. Now we're just kind of like waiting to hear back from the Don, right? Because it takes a little while. And then we get back in the response and set who is in the process of sending a request. And we also set which mission that they've submitted for. And then we emit the event. Now, what happens at this point, I'd want to show the source code really quickly for the app itself. So like if we look at like mission 0 and we go to mission 0 inside of the front end, and we go to components and we go to studio, we can look and see what the source code looks like for the source code, for the JavaScript source code, the actual source code for the source code. So you can see right here where we actually like formulate what the source code is going to be sent as here. And it's got those arguments there. So it's got the account is the argument 0, and we convert it to lowercase. So there's no issues with like, sometimes, addresses are like capital E and lowercase a and yada, yada, yada. We just kind of lowercase everything. And then we pass the query URL in the argument as well. And then we formulate the graph. So here's where we actually query the graph inside of the JavaScript, and then we check to make sure that a specific response comes back. We do some things like promise to like, some of this JavaScript probably could be optimized a little bit, but for the most part, all we're doing is saying like, go out, run this GraphQL query, make sure it matches this, and then if it does, come back with either a 0 or a 1, right? Sorry, a 1 or a 0. So 1 is successful, 0 is not, right? So it's pretty simple. It's just like, is it okay or is it not? And then we kind of like pass that off. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Let me go back to the validator. So then what happens at that point is the validate mission gets sent off to the Oracle. And then when it comes back to this fulfill request. So here's where we check and say, well, the callback happens. What's the request ID in the callback? What's the response? What's the error if there is one? If there is an error, revert. If it's valid, everything's valid, decode it, and then see what the is valid is equal to. So is it a 1? Cool. If it is, then let's mint them the NFT, right? So here's where we mint them the NFT, and otherwise we say, no, we won't want to. So really, really powerful. We're just using all smart contracts and decentralized Oracle network to like run this processing and set this stuff up. And so like if we go back here as well, I just want to show off the subscription as well. So if we come here and we look at the Chainlink subscription panel, you can create a subscription for like any of these chains. So you can do it for like Arbitrum, Avalanche, Base, Mainnet, Optimism, Polygon, and then now it looks like Sonium is on here as well, which is super cool. And you can see all the responses. So you can see the last 3 callbacks have been successful. But if there is an error, we can kind of look at it and see exactly what happened. It's kind of hard to troubleshoot. There's one caveat to all of this. Chainlink oracles is a little hard to troubleshoot. I think there's probably some stuff that could be built to make it a little better. Like one example would be like I added this kind of like pre-check to the mission where we like, before we even send it off to the Oracle network, like we check to make sure it's going to pass. Like we kind of like, and then we can catch some error stuff here. But the minute it gets into the decentralized Oracle network, it gets a little hard to troubleshoot. As you can see, there's some here that have like failed. So if we look at this one says, well, it can't read a count. So this person didn't configure their subgraph correctly because their count is not a type available on the response. If we look at like this one here, we can see that, well, it came back with a 0, right? So a 0 is a fail. So we know that this one didn't match, right? Like something was also wrong on the thing. So there's a certain level of like troubleshooting you can do. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. If anyone from Chainlink is listening, one thing I would love to see is like an API where you could like query this stuff so that I could display it in my front end here. But you do right now, you need to come here to kind of like see that stuff. So anyone who wants to mess around with the Chainlink stuff, it's really, really fun. It's a little complicated to set up, but once you get it going, it's really cool. It's kind of in a beta format, I guess they say, but I've been testing it and it's been working really, really well. And it's very predictable. On mainnet, the gas prices are a little like kind of all over the place and unpredictable. But when it comes to Base, you can see here that the callbacks are taking anywhere between like 0.12 link. So here's the cost of that it costs to like actually do the transaction. So like this is 0.211, 0.166. So generally speaking, it's about 1/5 of a link. And the current price of link is like, I think $20 something or something like that. So it's pretty affordable to run this stuff for, you know, doing these kind of like chain link validations. And you can see, yeah, it's pretty consistent. Actually, the prices have gone up a little bit over the last, like, I don't know, week or so. I don't know if that's something with the base network getting congested or what, but yeah. So yeah, so let's go back to here. Let's see if I have anything. Play this. So I guess what I'd love to ask for people is if they want to try it out, please let me know. You can reach out to me on Telegram, Kevin Jones Creates, or Twitter, cryptomastery_. Please like follow me or add me there. I'd love to have people test it. If you guys want to like toy around with it a little bit, if you have input, you have thoughts that you think would be really cool, I would love to hear them. And yeah, just I hope it's a cool tool. I hope it gets some traction. The idea is to try to have it ready for ETH Denver. Come find me if you're at ETH Denver. I'm going to be printing out some little astronaut stickers and passing those out for people to put on their laptops. And yeah, I hope you guys find it useful, and I hope it's a cool tool for you guys. So thank you so much.
Awesome job, Kevin. I think where the rubber meets the road is right where this exists. And that's a really cool thing, where you have built using the technology, demonstrating the technology, and giving people the tools to build in their own way, which is the best way to learn. So kudos to you, kudos to your effort. Anyone listening out there that knows a developer that would want to be where the rubber meets the road, go ahead and get involved with this onboarding of the Graph Builders Basecamp. I think it's the best way I have ever learned Ethereum was through Scaffold ETH by far. And anything that is inspired by Scaffold ETH and really replicates the kind of active learning environment and the enriched learning environment that just is inherent within the structure of that is 2 thumbs up from me. So great work with that. And yeah, man, that was really cool. So
thank you.
Yeah, right now I'm not seeing questions in the chat, and at the same time, people are giving thumbs up and emojis, which is cool, and fire emojis. So with that being said, Kevin, any other thoughts? I'll be at ETH Denver too, everyone. Kevin will be at ETH Denver. If anyone out there is at ETH Denver, we'll be pushing hard and trying to help, teach, and be there in public. Anything else you want to add, Kevin?
No, not really. Yeah, if anyone wants to meet at ETH Denver, if you're going to be there, please let me know. Yeah, I would love to chat with you about anything related with the Graph or Build Guild or Scaffold ETH. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you there, Marcus, as well. It's been a while since we hung out. So,
it's been a minute.
Yeah, this is going to be a good year. So I hope everyone is ready to build some cool stuff this year. And let's get it done.
Let's do it. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. If you want to find Kevin, he's Crypto Mastery on the X, and he's always present in the ecosystem. So thank you so much, Kevin.
Shout out to House of Web3 and to Elizabeth for giving me this awesome hoodie.
Yes, House of Web3.
Come to the House of Web3. It's in the Presidio. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful. All right, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. See you guys next week for another episode of Graph Builders Office Hours. Take care.
See you.